my
Welcome.
God, team.
Well, welcome to Berlin After Dark, episode 3. As usual, I'm your host, Stefan Van Quick. It's almost November and the heat seems to persist in Berlin. It's as if this global warming that scientists do not shut up about is a little bit more serious than we thought. But on the other hand, we have this peculiar group of people that seem to not understand that this shit is real. I'm sorry, but at this point, denying global warming is as smart as thinking that the Earth is flat. These scientists have been researching this for decades, and then you show up with 2 videos and a Facebook rant, and you think that's enough evidence to debunk their studies? Sorry, but you're not smarter than the scientists. Global warming is much more than an icebreaker for us. It's the underlying theme of our whole episode. That's why we're here in our underwater stage. That's here why we have the works of Berlin-based Johanna Keimeyer, an artist that creates works with one of the most damaging byproducts of our ways of mass consumption, plastic trash. And that's why I'm dressed up as Aquaman, the protector of the oceans. And I even have my trident. So get used to it, because if we don't act against global warming, this is our future, living in underwater, post-apocalyptic wastelands. So we have some great guests lined up for today's episode. First off, he's just celebrated visiting his 100th country. Manolo Ty is a photographer that has been traveling around the world and is going to be joining us to talk a little bit about his last project, a photo book about his time in Pakistan. As our musical guest, we have Babel Collage, and our final guest is trying to make classical music great again. Hans Narva is a musician and producer that just came back from the 2nd edition of his festival, where he's trying to connect classical music to a younger audience. So that's it. Global warming is real. The Earth is most definitely round, and this will be Berlin After Dark, episode 3. Stay around.
Say hello to my little friend.
As I said, our next guest recently celebrated his 100th country. And he's been photographing these countries that he's been traveling. And over the last 5 years, he's been to Pakistan 5 times, if I'm not mistaken. And those 5 trips culminated in the publication of his 2nd book, Pakistan Now. To talk a little bit more about that, my next guest, Manolo Ty. So, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me here.
Okay, let's go straight to it. So, you told me 12 years ago you started traveling a little bit more regularly. You started to take photographies at these trips as a, kind of a personal journal, kind of like to remember the trips and whatnot?
Yeah, obviously it's hard if you start traveling to there's this huge whatever around you and you just try to kind of put it in your memory card in your brain, and I think it was much easier for me to kind of have pictures of it to kind of store it in the beginning, and later there's so much more, every kilometer you travel, there's so much more, and it was an easy way for me.
What do you want? What do you try to portray with your photography? Is it the stories of the people behind these places? Is it the places themselves?
In the book Pakistan Now, I try to really focus on the culture and the people, because I think there's been a lot of reporting about Pakistan, but always in a one-dimensional way. You see something about terrorist attacks, about stuff like this, and I think there's so much more to it. It's a country of 200 million people, so. Nobody would live there if it would look as it looks in the news. And I don't say these things are wrong, but there's so much more to it. It's a very diverse country. And normally if I do travel photography, I try to highlight all the different aspects, what you see when you are in the country.
This episode of Berlin After Dark, we're talking a little bit about global warming and climate change. And you've been traveling some countries, visiting them over a
several times over these 12 years. Tell me a little bit about the consequences of these global changes that you can notice already nowadays in these places.
I mean, obviously, you can see it in so many different facets all over the world. In Pakistan, for example, you have like these huge areas where you have fields and plantations and everything, and they are slowly like getting dry. There's not enough water coming through the Indus River and the canals around. There's not enough rain, so they're pumping up the groundwater, which is very salty. So the whole soil is getting like kind of salty, and I mean, in the end, it breaks in some way. So this is like something what is like really obvious. You look around and all having the crusts on top, the salty ones, and you know that in a few years you won't be able to grow crops there. Yeah. You had like a huge flood a few years ago in Pakistan too, which also is this because at some point if it rains, if there's a lot of water coming, the ground can't really store it anymore.
Yeah, and these are issues that are happening right now. They're not something that will happen in 10, 15 years. Those are those are consequences that these places are facing right now.
Exactly. Even when I sometimes came back to places, for example, I went diving in some coral reefs, and like you suddenly go there and it's all white, like everything is dead, and this is kind of depressing.
And there's going to be, beyond the environmental impact of this, there's going to be a lot of social repercussions of this. These people that might be on farming, they won't be able to farm anymore. They might have to move to cities, and that might affect situations like jobs or opportunities, creating social consequences from climate change as well.
I mean, the consequences are all over the place. I mean, that we have now this kind of growing racism in the world is probably also a reason for climate change, and even will get bigger because like people losing their income in their hometowns or home countries, they cannot grow crops anymore, or there's no fish in the water anymore, stuff like this. And then obviously you will try to go somewhere else where it's possible. It's not just always wars which create people to leave. And once you have like all people of the world tried of fighting over little resources, and this is like making racism.
Well, I read an article that said exactly that it proposed that one of the indirect consequences of droughts and lack of rain in Syria moved farmers into the city, which created social distress, and that could be one of the indirect consequences of the civil war over there, just like the lack of opportunities and in the cities. Okay, knowing that you've been to 100 countries, we cannot expect you to talk about all of them because our show is not that long. But we prepared the cards with a couple of the ones that you said that you've been, and we would like to hear a story or a memory about these places. First thing that pops into your mind.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay, Abkhazia. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Abkhazia.
So Abkhazia is probably a place which not many people know. It's one of the not really recognized countries by the United Nations.
Okay.
A couple of countries recognize it, and it's, I think, by the UN rules belonging to Georgia, but they see themselves as independent. And yeah, it's this small country which is like, it's really interesting. You have like the huge Elbrus Mountains, which is like 5,000 something meter, and then you have like the sea, and you have some microclimate there. It's quite amazing. You have palm trees growing there, and you have snow just there. So an interesting story getting there. I went from Georgia, and I got searched by the FSB, the Russian secret service thing. I guess they also wanted to know what I'm doing there. So they copied my whole diary and everything what I have with me, just like to have like files of it. So if I lose it now, it's not a problem. I can always ask Putin to give it back to me.
Yeah, you can submit a request like, hey, I lost my hard drive. Can you send me the copy that you guys have?
Exactly.
We got Senegal.
Senegal. So this was actually the 100th country I visited. It was this year. and I went there to photograph the wrestlers. So they have like a old culture of wrestling, and it's quite amazing having this huge, strong guys like training in the sand at the beach, and yeah.
Do they get colorful outfits like Mexican wrestlers, or is it more like?
No, it's just like they were really little, and they put like everywhere like little things. It's like there's a lot of animism in it. So they put milk over their head.
It's quite performatic.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Okay. Thailand.
Thailand is where it all started for me. So after I went out from school and I had to do my compulsory military service, I went to Thailand and trained Thai boxing there and worked at film. So this is where it all started for me.
Okay, Italy, close by.
Italy. I mean, I try to go like once a year to Italy. I think it's one of the most beautiful places, and yeah, you have so much there. Like last time I went to some abandoned cities, which I don't know why they had to leave the cities like middle in the forest, and we got almost stuck in the middle of the forest at night because our GPS stopped working and the road stopped being there.
They were not lightened up. Okay, and China.
China. So China, I did like a big, like my big first exhibition. What I did was about China. I got asked to document the preparation of the Olympic Games. So I went there twice and just like went into these in the stadiums before they were ready, and like went through the country. And yeah, this was a starting point to realize actually that I can actually be a photographer, not just as a hobby, but as a profession.
So you just said that China was kind of like a breaking point in your career. This was when you started to realize that you could also start exhibiting your work in galleries and taking the photography thing to a new whole level as a professional career?
That was in 2007, so
Okay.
yeah, a couple of years ago.
Tell me a little bit more about it. You got contacted by these?
I got like contacted by someone I just did like a small book for myself about like travels in Southeast Asia. I never published it. But somebody got to see it and just said like, I want to have this show, and yeah, in the end, like it was my first show, but it was like between like the one time before was Reuters and afterwards was National Geographic. I think couldn't be much bigger for a start, and yeah, I just tried it. But it was interesting to see that this stuff always can get political very quickly, even if you don't plan to do it. So they asked me to like take out pictures of Tibet in this, because they said we don't want to touch the topic. It's a hot topic in China. So I don't know why they thought it's. I mean, if they want to that Tibet is part of China, then I thought like should be represented too.
Yeah.
But they thought it would be like not so good.
But it's a very sensitive topic,
Exactly.
considering Tibet part of China.
You always have to be very careful. I mean, I try to be as apolitical as possible. I'm really interested in politics. I try to understand what is going on, but I'm not really taking a side. Politics are often so complex that even if you just get into it, you don't know who's playing with who and how it's really working. So I think you have to be a politician to really do politics, and I don't want to do that. I'm a photographer.
This is your second book. And the first book was completely self-published. You just came up with the content, set it up, and then you proceeded to sell it by yourself.
That was the first book, yes.
Yeah.
I had the idea to do it, and I mean, in the end, if you just starting off, it's really hard to make people believe you that you can do it. So at some point, they wanted it like to have it in a different way, the ones who have been interested. And I just thought, like, this is not what I want to show. I want to do it in my way, and so the best way was to do it myself.
Yeah.
It's a hard way, though.
Yeah, well, but I'm pretty sure that you learned a lot of things that helped a lot in the production of the second book. You know,
That's for sure.
If you want something well done, do it yourself, and
That's
then learn
it.
how to do it, and then get somebody to do it for you next time.
Yeah.
Okay, and what's coming up next?
So there's quite a few projects, and not all of them I can talk about it yet. One is definitely to work on a new book. Will take some time until it's out. I have some projects which is closely related to climate, and one about poaching in Africa. And yeah, I hope I can do some, have some effect on people, that they taking more care about the world.
Okay, well, I'll be glad to see that happen. Thanks a lot for coming. Well, this was Manolo Ty for Berlin After Dark.
Our musical guest tonight has a very self-explanatory name. Babel Collage is exactly that, a collage from different places and influences. Without any further ado.
Und der Haifisch, der hat Zähne und die trägt er im Gesicht. Und Mackie, der hat ein Messer, doch das Messer sieht man nicht. Ach, es sind des Haifischflossen rot, wenn dieser Blut vergisst. Mackie Messer trägt einen Handschuh, drauf man keine unterzieht. Und Schmulmeier bleibt verschwunden, und so mancher reicher Mann. Und sein Geld hat Mackie Messer schon wieder, dem man nichts beweisen kann. An einem schönen blauen Sonntag liegt ein toter Mann am Strand, und ein Mensch geht um die Ecke, den man Mackie Messer nennt. Und die einen sind im Dunkeln und die anderen sind im Licht. Doch man sieht nur die im Lichte, die im Dunkeln sieht man nicht. Doch man sieht nur die im Lichte, die im Dunkeln sieht man nicht. Ja.
we're so excited. We have an incredible surprise for our audience tonight. Everybody of our audience is gonna get a brand new car. You're gonna get a brand new car. You're gonna get a brand new car. Everybody's gonna get brand new cars.
Stefan, how about I'll tell you? We have no cars.
No cars.
No cars.
0 cars.
No cars at all.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Our next guest started playing in punk rock bands in the 80s and now is doing classical musical festivals to connect younger audiences with classical music. So to explain how it got from point A to point B, Hans Narva.
Hi, nice to meet you. Thanks.
So, as I just said, you started off playing in punk rock bands in the 80s here in Berlin.
Yeah. You want to know about
Yeah, I really like to know a little bit more about how that was like.
So yeah, you know, maybe I'm coming from East Germany and the eastern part of Berlin as well. So it was kind of very special situation about communistic government and our quite socialistic government. Everything around young people was a little bit boring because it was not colorful and it was full of stupid slogans and something like that. So, and I become some trouble because of own opinions and of own things doing. I went for 1.5 years into the jail or into the prison.
Okay.
So as I come out, they are waiting some colorful guys and say, okay, give me a high five, would you like to join in our band? So, and that was a punk rock band, it's called Herbst in Peking, and we had, in this time when the wall comes down, we had this hit, the Republik. It was very successful. What is an opposite to be punk rock, you know, because we did not want to be as successful with a hit. And then I stopped to do this band things because it was too commercial for me. So that was my punk rock band stories. In my heart and soul, I'm still a punk rock, and that's why maybe the development in my life take this ways.
Yeah, and you told me that after this period with the punk rockers, you started working with classical musical festivals and more of an organizational role.
I worked for the music in the theater pieces, and one day I tried to play, because I tried to involve in one of this project a violin. And then I become an idea of what means classical instruments to use in kind of pop or rock or punk music. And it was quite interesting for me. So then I founded another band. It was kind of melancholic music, and I involved in this a quartet, a string quartet. And I fell in love for this. Amazing amount of money. So it's especially for very rich people. If you try to get some tickets for a classic event, you pay 3 or 4 times more than the most the most expensive concert. So and that's the end. And the main problem is that it's the old audience. I have nothing against old people. It's far away.
But you have to give the option to maybe younger people that might be interested in classical music, but maybe don't have those funds to afford 4 times the price of maybe a regular non-classical concert. Taking in the idea of this rigid, expensive, and focused on all people music style, you decided to do things completely different and create your own festival where it was a little bit more flexible, exciting, and affordable for younger audiences.
Another thing what's very important is that we mixed up this classical music things with some kind of electronic music, some kind of quite pop stars, they are singing. We mix this, we bring this the classical music to different places, or industrial houses, or we go to we built up a stage on the sea, on the water, on the lake, so that they played on the lake. You can swim around or hanging around in some big wheels and something like so. That becomes more attractive, and
that doesn't happen in traditional classical music. It's always in opera houses, and again, with a very high entry ticket, with a very high price tag to be able to appreciate this art form. Yeah, because we were just discussing this earlier. These were statistically areas where the voting was pushing towards the far right. So the idea was to bombard these ideas with culture and music and beauty.
Yeah, the problem is that from outside, all the people around this area, they are thinking about it's the fucking Nazi area. But inside there are some Initiativen, is it? You understand?
Yeah.
So they care about culture. So it's not that they have nothing. So, but it's also a sign, I guess a good sign, that there are coming some people from outside to go inside to make a cooperation with the people inside, so that they can see there's not all the people from outside are thinking that we are stupid. So, and that's also a sign against this voting for the far right parties, so that wait a second, if they are coming from outside and they're from inside and they make culture bunches, then I think about this again. So and
it's just like a very good opportunity to exchange ideas and just like get a little bit of each other's point of view. You know? It's just better than yelling at each other that you're wrong or I am wrong or whatever.
Yeah, of course.
And how was the reception of the festival? How was the results? Were people enjoying it?
Yeah. I guess I know it from. We had a lot of. Reactions from the print medias, from TV, from radio stations, and we had good visit events. So you understand what it's good to understandable. I'm so sorry about my English, but I grew up in East Germany. We can talk in Russian. That would be much easier for me.
Well, we want to thank you a lot for joining us, and we will be very much excited to be hearing about next year's edition.
We want to invite you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that I can come.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
That was a lot of fun. I had a great time. We should do this again sometime. And we probably will. When something happens once, it's an accident. By the second time, you can start thinking it's a coincidence. But by the third time, that's a pattern. And that's what we're celebrating here in Berlin. Our graduation from an accident towards a coincidence, and now towards a pattern. So, patterns. Again, thanks for coming. This was Berlin After Dark. And again, now you can go play outside, patterns.